works and it
That's
gets
right,
better.
that's the placebo effect. Isn't
But
it?
Yeah, but that could be turned into the thing that they think psychologically, yeah, that's the real medicine for them.
Exactly, it can become a claim. That
Yeah.
20% success rate can become a claim.
Yeah,
Oh, look, it cures people. You know, if a doctor sees 10,000 people with arthritis,
yeah.
and 2,000 of them seem to get cured by this thing, he or she is probably going to think, oh, look, it works. I mean, 20% is not a bad rate, but it's actually just placebo.
Although it has been using in the category of placebo.
Yeah, it's just a placebo
I
effect.
cannot understand in Australia, we consider it a Western country, okay?
Yeah.
Wherever any illness come out, wherever you walk into any doctor's clinic, they prescribe the same medication to you.
I will explain you
Too
later.
powerful.
No worries. I will explain you.
Yeah, they're very, very.
Doctors
proficient
here in
one
Australia
line.
are very good, extremely experienced. They have a very deep knowledge, but
Yeah,
their actions very restricted by guidelines.
yeah.
Doctor can't
They tell you to do it.
can't choose the treatment. The field for doctor is diagnostic, not treatment. You know, if I know that you, for example, somebody has depression,
Yeah,
very common condition here in Australia, surprisingly.
everyone with depression is.
Yes,
Everyone in
I
Adelaide.
have, as a doctor, I have a vast choice of antidepressants, from anxious to modern, but I know about all of them, all controversial, all side effects, all from the scientific field. But I have very strict guideline from Medicare.
Oh,
And I have only
You see very
two
powerful
choices. I can prescribe some pills or some lifestyle modifications. That is all.
There is no way
Okay.
you can turn to say which one is right, which one is wrong, because if they're
Yeah.
very powerful in the background line.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've still got a fair range of choice in Australia, of course. You can still go to Ayurvedic. I mean, there's a little school about 3 doors up on Curry Street, isn't there? You might know it, alternate medicine school that teaches all sorts of different possible traditions, you know. There's a fair range of choice.
But
If
the
you
recognition is
don't-
there.
Yeah. Well, when those things get proved on an empirical level, then Medicare, no doubt, will start funding those things. And some of those things have, over the last 2 or 3 decades, crept into being funded by Medicare, because some of them do demonstrate empirically that they have an effect. But until then, health authorities wouldn't fund it. And no doubt there are other political reasons. They probably restrict it because they want to restrict the funding as well, all sorts of politics, but yeah. Okay, so there's appeal to tradition.
That is appeal to tradition.
Yeah.
John, we should have a debate in our class.
Yeah, once we've got all of these, let's do it. All right, that's a good idea. We could, and people can sort of identify if people are making errors. That's good practice, actually. So look, that was, appeal to popular belief, 13. Lots of people believe vitamin C cures colds, therefore it does. If you go to Cochrane Collaboration, you'll find 0 evidence that it happens. Okay, let's link that one with number 18. It's pretty similar. Appeal to common practice. Everybody does it, or lots of people do it, therefore it's morally good. Or not many people do it, therefore it's bad. You can get the opposite. Everybody cheats on their tax, so it's okay. I'll change my statement, my tax statement. It's okay, everybody does it. Or lots of, it may not be everybody, but just lots of people do it. So it's okay. Even accountants, my God. Yeah, right. See Lynn. See Lynn, see the expert.
I should
Yeah. So, can you see it's a little bit different from number 13, because 13 is about what you believe. about something. Appeal to common practice is what you do. Yeah. Let's go to. Well, let's go back to, look, we've been talking about research and empirical. So are we okay about those? I'm jumping around a bit. But number 13, appeal to popular belief, appeal to common practice. Alright? Everybody does it, or lots of people do it, therefore it's okay. Or, not many people do that, therefore it must be incorrect. A certain kind of lifestyle, for example. Oh, there are hardly any vegans, people who don't use animal products at all. Therefore, that's just really weird and strange and, that's ridiculous. That kind of thing. So it's often connected with cultural practice, isn't it? If people do it a lot, it's okay. If people don't do it very much, you think that's not okay. Well, we'd have to look at veganism, not using animal products, and, is it morally correct or not? We have to look at the moral argument. Maybe that's a good reason why or why not to be vegan. Some people do it for health reasons. I think the data shows vegetarians, at least in Australia, live about 2 years longer than non-vegetarians. So, there's a bit of data to suggest that it probably is good for your health. Rather than lots of people do it or lots of people don't do it. Again, go to the data. Now the data, of course, has to be collected the proper way, and it can't be cherry-picked, and we need to have a decent sample size, not 1, 2 or 5 people. That sample size, of course, there are statistical methods of determining what size group we need to test. That can get quite complex. I know probably a few people here who's done research statistics in the past in your studies. I did lots of, when I was doing psychology. Yeah, good. That's good to have a couple of
I have done it in like physiology and all of those stuff.
Right.
Those sort of statistics.
Like t-tests and correlations and and you have to have beyond a certain sample size to get a certain, what we call confidence interval, to be able to say confidently something is the case. Obviously, the bigger the sample, the more confidently we can say that's proved or not proved. If we do it with 100 compared to 10,000, we do it with 10,000, we're more confident about our findings, aren't we? Roughly. But there are very kind of exact formula and methods for determining that. But just the general point, we need a decent sample size. And if we look at number 3, go right back to the top, a biased sample. Now, a biased sample means the way you've collected that data is a problem. Now, we'll take an easy example. Let's say, okay, there's probably an election, I think next year in the federal government. Imagine we're close to the election, like 2 months before. We want to find out, are people going to vote for Tony or are people going to vote for Bill? Yeah? So, or the Greens, Richard. All right. So, tell me, we've got some money, but we haven't got infinite amounts. We can interview a decent sample size, 1,000 people. That's not too bad. Right? We haven't got enough money to do 10,000, that'd be better, but we're often just restricted by money. We can pay people, 2 people for a day to interview 500 people each. Right? Okay, so what would you do? Where would you go and how would you do it to get a reliable, non-biased result? So at the moment, I think the polls show, the latest last week, 54-46, don't they, in favour of the Labor Party. That's done by professional polling groups. A poll is just a very old English word for a head. So when you go and vote, you go into the polling booth. Each person, each head goes in, right? So when you do a survey, you do some polling. How would you do your polling to get the most reliable result? Clearly you want to be able to predict it as accurately as possible. Any suggestions?
Random.
Yeah. How would you do? That's a very important point. Randomise. So random, just no order, no pattern, and have a randomised. So a randomised sample, yeah, important. How would you get that, Hannah?
So make the statistic from, for example, I take, I go to any place, for example.
Yeah, give us a place.
I don't know where, I didn't know a place about Australia. Any place in Australia, open place for all the people come in this place and ask for some question
Yeah.
and collect the data.
Survey.
Okay, let's imagine we're doing that. We're part of a national group, okay, and we're going to poll in Adelaide, Melbourne, Sydney. You know, we've got our
Maybe
cities.
Phone text for phone book. For
Okay, you go to the phone book.
sometimes.
That's not a bad idea. Okay, if we went to the phone book, what we shut our eyes and go, shut our eyes and go. And we do one person does 500 of those, and another person does 500. Yeah. Okay, or you know, on a computer we might have the names in a database, and we just randomly generate 500 names and start ringing. Okay, how's that? What do people think of that method? Are there any problems with that? What are the problems?
Most of the time they don't answer.
They don't
Sometimes
answer.
By
they
chance.
They don't want
the
to
right
know.
answer. Even they answer the phone, they won't say you exactly what they want to do.
Okay, so we might have, yeah, but okay, that may not bias results because if Labor people and Liberal people equally don't answer phones or are equally reluctant to give their political position, we're still going to get reliable results, aren't we? We're going to get lots of failures, so we might have to interview 850 calls to get our 500, right? But nevertheless, that's not going to affect our proportions of Labor to Liberal, I don't think. So some factors will distort the result. That factor I don't think probably will. But there are factors in this that will. What's the problem with ringing from the telephone book? Costs? We could use WhatsApp or Viber and have free calls, okay? So there's no cost for the phone call.
Not all people have telephone, maybe.
Yeah,
Not all
okay, now,
people have
not all people, now, if not all people have it, but there's no particular pattern in the group that don't have it, that's okay. It's not going to affect our result. But think about it. Who don't have phones? Landlines. We're talking about landline, aren't we, in the phone book? Lots of people these days don't have them. Now, which groups do not have landlines?
Low income,
Right, low income.
so there might be more left side.
That's right, that's right. So lower income are not going to have landlines, so we're probably going to miss out on more,
Majority of the
we would
left side.
suggest more left, so more Labor, but that would affect Labor voting results, wouldn't it? So demographic groups, demographic. So demo is people, demographic measuring people. So an important word when we come to surveys of people. Yeah. So different demographic groups. We've got the low income. Yeah. Okay. Why else might it be a problem? Which other groups don't have landlines?
High technology one.
How many people here have landlines in your house? Reasonable number, but not everybody.
No,
But I just connect the internet directly. I leave the phone.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
because now.
I never answer my landline either.
Yeah.
You know, it's just there for the
But
internet.
it just
Yeah.
connect.
No, now,
Who uses their landline as a phone? Okay, a lot less sometimes, yeah. But I would suggest, especially new people arriving in the country would probably tend to have less landline connection. So migrants. Which way would migrants tend to vote, Labor or Liberal?
Yes.
Probably more. I mean, if you look at your political compass results, most of you are kind of somewhat to the left, right? So we lose those. That would distort the result, wouldn't it?
What about international students that live in uni lodges?
Exactly. International students.
They use
Yeah.
phones all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the question there would be, are they eligible to vote?
Oh, yeah. True.
Yeah, so they may not be relevant.
What if they Australian citizen? Like
Yeah,
if they
there
get
might be
that,
some
Some
that
of
are.
them might be.
Yeah.
like,
Who is
A lot of people who rent, generally, which is linked with low income, may not have a landline.
Yeah.
Younger people just have mobile phones, right? So older people. Now, as we go up the age structure, what tends to happen with politics? Does it go that way or does it go that way? It goes to the right. You know, generally older groups are more conservative. So again, we tend to get an over-representation of conservatives and an under-representation of the left, wouldn't we? So can you see how that method is biasing your sample, isn't it? And it seems, at surface look, it seems like not a bad method because we're randomising, we're just putting in names, but the fact that the actual ownership of landlines is not randomised. There are certain patterns to it. Okay, so we've got this problem. So put your thinking caps on. How are we going to get randomised survey here? What if we went to Rundle Mall? Okay, it's Wednesday, a bit after 12. We'll go up at lunchtime to Rundle Mall.
I think it's a good idea because if you choose somewhere like close to public transport, then again we got a barrier. Like most of the people, they don't use bus. People who drive, they might use their own car.
Would we tend to get, again, certain demographics, certain groups in Rundle Mall at lunchtime on Wednesdays?
It's working
Sure.
hours, so
Yeah, you tend to get non-workers, wouldn't you? You
Yeah.
possibly get more women,
Yeah.
yeah. Certain poorer groups tend to live right out on the edges of the cities, and it's a long way to travel in, so they might go to Norwalga Shopping Centre or Elizabeth, but they're not going to come in here. So you probably get a slightly wealthier layer in Rundle Mall. Various possible effects, you know, but rather hard. So that's not random either, is it?
If we choose Friday, I think we can get it because Friday I think no in London.
Even Friday. Okay, go there. You mean after 5 o'clock?
After 5.
Okay. who is in Rundle Mall on Friday? Very particular group.
Teenagers?
Yeah, exactly. All the school kids
All the
with their
school
school
kids,
bags.
yeah.
Yeah, they're all in Rundle Mall,
It's
aren't
late
they?
night shopping
Yeah.
and all that, so they chill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you get an over-representation of the
Exactly.
youth vote,
Yeah.
the 18-year-old types, if they were eligible to vote.
And,
You get a strong green result, probably.
Maybe.
A stronger.
Yeah.
Right, so you've got all these... Okay, so any suggestions? What's your best collection method?
Do it from every one of them, like 50 from one section, 50 from another.
Going home to home.
Because
Home to home.
if you divide like your
Okay, now which suburbs are you going to pick?
Like few suburbs, like
Mhm.
some lower.
No, I think both side suburbs, like Burnside suburbs or like Elizabeth suburbs.
Yeah, you'd have to be really careful about your balance. How are you going to
Balance.
judge?
You have to balance.
How are you going to measure wealth? You're going to have to look at a wealth chart.
Yes.
And you're going to have to pick suburbs that are carefully distributed along the wealth curve, aren't you? That's getting complicated. Here's what I would suggest. We have a voting roll. We actually have a roll. When you go and vote, they say, what's your name? Where's your address? Okay, those are the only people who can vote. Right? Now, it doesn't matter whether you own a phone or don't own a phone or where you live. You get what's called the electoral roll. That's what it's called. Electoral roll. You get an electronic version. You randomly select 500 people. Researcher A goes and contacts them. Researcher B contacts another 500. You've got a purely random list, haven't you, of
Very good
those
idea.
who will vote.
Very good idea.
Yeah. Now that's not all that complication about suburb and balancing it against wealth and you could possibly do that, but
How is it
This-
electoral roll?
the electoral roll is just a list of all the voters who can vote. So you're not asking like that fellow, say Wally mentioned about international students. You're getting rid of people whose opinion doesn't count. Yeah. So you're only asking those who are actually going to vote for a start, and then
Citizens, like.
whether they're rich, poor, own a phone, are homeless, it doesn't matter. You're getting a randomised sample there.
Is it accessible?
It is for certain. I think you have to be like a registered research organisation or something. I don't know if it's public. Yeah. So that's the sort of thing that, like Gallup, Morgan Stanley, these big research companies who do, when you see the figures in the paper, they've got all these methods very carefully worked out because their reputation depends on being as reliable as possible. So they're thinking all these methodologies through all the time. So, of course, you can see how, if you have the wrong method, like you go down Rundle Mall or you just use landline telephones, you will get a wrong result. You'll get a distorted result. And that can often happen, research methods have to be very carefully thought through. And you as a reader, say for your argument, you're gathering research and data, how has that data been collected? Has it been collected using a method that doesn't bias the result or not?
Questionnaire.
You often have to look into that, don't you? Questionnaires, yeah, and look, even the kind of question, the wording of the question can shape people's responses. Even face-to-face questioning, there's a tendency for people to answer, psychologically, they tend to answer what they expect the questioner would like to hear, things like that, So you've got to try to get rid of all of that. It gets very complex. So this is part of, reading and critically thinking. When you get research, sometimes you need to go and look at, especially if you're expecting someone to question that research, challenge you, you get up and give a presentation, somebody goes, oh, I don't believe that data. Where'd you get that from? That's different from anything I've ever seen. How was it collected? Really, you've got to be able to defend it or criticise it or whatever. That's pretty important. By a sample.
Overgeneralization.
Yeah, we've covered overgeneralisation, just saying everything, never, always, or treating whole areas like Western medicine, Chinese medicine, instead of individual particular techniques. It's much better to talk about the precise technique, isn't it? It would be very hard to make a broad comment about Western medicine or a broad comment about Ayurvedic.
Is it like a stereotyping?
Yeah, kind of. It can lead to stereotyping. Yeah. One more, and we'll get into the discussion with the conversations. We may as well work from the top down. Legal moral distinction. Just because something's legal doesn't necessarily mean it's moral. Doesn't it?
What number is it?
Number 9. Just because it's legal, for example, in the United States in the 1950s, it was the law that white people sat in one part of the cafe and non-white people sat in another. That was the law. Many people questioned the morality of that, and there was a huge campaign for 10 years, 15 years to get rid of that. So we can all think of many immoral laws. And just because something is illegal doesn't necessarily make it immoral or unethical. Most of those are obvious, but at times it's sort of less obvious. Oh, you shouldn't do that, that's against the law. Not a valid argument. You've got to distinguish between the two. Okay, let's have a look at, I'll just identify which ones are which here. Let's go back to our conversations. Number 6. Number 1. Number 15. I don't think we've got matching ones for all of these. Just start with those. Those 3. Which of those fallacies you've been looking at today? We've got bias sample. What else? Legal and moral, overgeneralisation, appeal to popular belief, appeal to common practice.
There are 5, right? Or is it 6?
I think we've got 5, haven't we,
5
today?
Yeah.
And we've got 3 conversations. On the conversations, I haven't got one conversation for every one of these. All right? But those 3, can you identify the problem in those conversations?
Because it says in my state. One is 13.
This is number one appeal to common practice.
Yeah, that's appeal to common practice. Number 6. People buy into the I think number 6 is bias. Bias, yeah, number 6. Legal. Number 15 is legal models, right? Do you think so? Legal moral distinctions. If you read the definition, I feel that. Let me just go check out